And now it's time for one of those rare rewatchable new series episodes of Doctor Who. JT and the Whotastic panel are here with The Impossible Planet.
Well, hello everybody. Welcome back to Wholloween here on the channel. How are you all? How are my Whotastic panel this evening? I've got Paul, I've got Kirsty, Radio Chat, I've got Dr. Ian. Don't turn around. And the Time Lord victorious himself, Emilio, are with me. Hello everybody.
Hello.
Hello.
Hello. Yes, here we are then towards the end of our Halloween season. Hasn't it gone quick?
It has.
It has, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
It'll be Christmas before you know it.
Oh gosh, here we go. It's true though, it is true. Nice to see everybody. Welcome. Here we are then. Yes, we are talking about the Impossible Planet on this particular show. Yes, the Impossible Planet today, the Satan Pit tomorrow. Watching back this particular episode, I thought, crikey, they don't make them like this anymore, do they?
Sadly, they don't. Yeah.
No.
Absolutely incredible. I just couldn't quite believe where we were at. It's great to see everybody coming in to see us in the chat here, but what do you think? They don't make them like this, do they? And it's only such a short time in context, because this is Doctor Who, The Impossible Planet. First broadcast, by the way, on the BBC One, the 3rd of June 2006, and written by Matt Jones, directed by James Strong, and producer Phil Collinson. 2006. This is what I call a shocker when you realize this and then where it is today. Goodness me. But even the start of this, I mean, this is the Impossible Planet, and this picture itself, just wow. I mean, I just thought, look at this and thought, this is actually very Doctor Who, isn't it, guys?
Very.
It's very Doctor Who. I definitely agree, and the effects aren't too bad. But some of that sanctuary base looks a bit. How can I put it? Janky, I think it's called now. But
Janky.
Yeah, it's dated a little bit, you know. So,
what do you mean the actual? Do you mean the actual model on that picture there?
That's not too bad, but they get a couple of shots when it kind of does a tracking shot and it pulls out away from the base, and it looks like a bit of ropey CGI, or janky, to use my word, which is a new word now.
This is my thing about this, and I don't know if Kirsty and Emilio are going to agree with me on this, but you guys will know. I've often said that some of these stories now from 2005 onwards, because of the use of that CGI, will now look dated because of CGI. And we've been talking on headlines about how everybody's going back to model making, thank goodness, so that it won't actually look dated in the future. But I think this is why stories like this could possibly work, because in this episode, there's not much CGI in it, really, is there?
Yeah, and it is, I think it looks like they spent money on it more so than they have done recently, if that makes sense.
I would agree with that. I think, though, if you jump maybe another 20 years on, and when they re-release these on 3D crystal-born DVD equivalent with optional new effects, you'll probably find that they'll replace the effects of the exterior with actual models. You know,
they'll come full circle. Yeah.
Circle. Yeah.
Oh, really? Do you think? Oh, God, there's a talking point. Then we'll see what these.
They don't date that badly, do they? I mean, you look back at the practical models, say in the Snowscape and Seeds of Doom, and they look fantastic even now. You know, and that was mid 1970s. I think, you know, it'll probably go full circle, whatever format it's on. I think they'll say, yeah, we can improve that, and do them all again.
We'll find out, won't we? Before we get Emilio and Kirsty's point of view on that one, I just want to say a huge thank you to Digby for your super chat. This is a classic base Under Siege story with a nice Nigel Neal Lovecraft style twist. Would be great to do Midnight sometime, or even the BBC Christmas ghost stories. Apologies for being cheeky. You're not being cheeky at all.
That's why we're here.
Yeah. Stay tuned. We have got a little bit of a spin coming up for the Christmas season. The Christmas season on Whose Views. We've got a little bit of a spin for you there, and we'll see how that goes, Digby. But stay tuned for that one. And Lex Kane, thank you so much for your super chat. I remember hearing this in 2006, that while part of one story was airing, part two was still getting filmed and edited at the same time. Really? I don't remember hearing anything about that. That would be a shocker if that was true. I wonder what went wrong. But thanks, Lex Kane. Thank you. It's nice to see you all in the chat. Thank you very much, everybody, for being with us as we look at this as part of our Wholloween season. So, Kirsty and Emilio, this is your Doctor Who, isn't it? Really? This is where you came on board. What do you think about what Ian was just saying there? Yeah.
Before you say
it. Yeah, I do get that some of it is a bit, the set is a bit meh, but still the special effects are still wicked. This is like peak. You'll be glad to know this is not an episode. This is not an episode I watched at 9:30 a.m. because I actually saw
it. Yeah.
Well, I was first year at high school, so that was peak time, like watching. It's iconic. We were talking about that last night, JT. That it's from that season. It's one of the highlights of it. Both this one and tomorrow's with the Satan Pit, but especially getting you into this with Impossible Planet. It is seeing it now as an adult with like bits of when it comes to tomorrow as well, like the religious context of the devil and what's coming and it is iconic, and it is, again, still, we'll say that's one of the highlights of season 2. The performances are wicked. I think the actor is called Toby. He's on fire when he's under the prosthetics as well. First time seeing the Ood, it's when it is a standout season. We'll talk about like iconic monsters and whatnot and iconic things. Ood's one of the things that comes to my mind because of that period of time, and they still are creepy little monsters. And that was brilliant when iconic, plain and simple.
Wow. Oh, well, that's good to know. That is really good to know. Amelia, I don't know if you agree with that one as well, because this is, I mean, this is your Doctor Who for you two, really. Whereas those oldies that come into this going, what's this about? Bear in mind, this is series
I saw this on the original broadcast when it was 9. Okay, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah. Just make a note of that.
Yeah.
Right.
You can do the math yourself.
But I don't know. I mean, how old were you, Amelia, when you first saw this when it was broadcast in 2006?
I would have probably 10 when this was first broadcast. It was probably the 8th episode I watched, like Doctor Who live, because I didn't watch the first season of Christopher Eccleston when it came out. I kind of caught up on it. I think it was around about kind of Christmas 2005. So season 2 was really the first series I watched live, and I think having rewatched it back, I get that kind of feeling like Kirsty does, a nostalgia watching this. I would say the effects are they have dated a little bit, but actually I prefer Doctor Who to look a little bit gritty, a bit dated. I don't want it to look so clean and sharp because I don't think it suits what Doctor Who is. It's not meant to be like a sci-fi movie with great effects like Star Wars. I actually quite like watching it back, and it not in full HD. I think it creates a different kind of atmosphere for me personally when I rewatch this. It actually suits the horror and the kind of gritty atmosphere that it has in the episodes. So from an effects perspective, I have no problem kind of rewatching it. But I think it has as Kirsty will talk about it, I think it has so many interesting themes. This episode, as you say, about religion.
It really does.
But also, I think ultimately it's throwing the Doctor in a place that's outside of his comfort zone. And I think that's always a very interesting place to put the Doctor as a character who thinks he knows everything, or, he thinks about everything in a very scientific way from what he's observed. But actually to put him in a situation where, he's trying to basically box everything in his logical comprehension, but actually there's that kind of room there in this episode, and it's obviously explored in the second part, that he doesn't know everything, and some things there may be there is a supernatural element to the way to the way things work. So I think this kind of first part does a great job in kind of us as an audience going through that journey of the Doctor, being kind of like in fear, being in the unknown, being outside of a comfort zone, and it does a really good job of setting that up for the second part to delve a little bit deeper into that.
You're absolutely right. I totally agree with that. We've been joined by Jack as well. Jack, are you there?
You're looking well.
Oh my word.
That's brilliant. Oh my goodness. Oh yeah. Oh dear. That's what I call a hangover, everybody.
Yeah.
How are you, Jack? You all right? Kenyo, he's
You need to get some cucumbers under the eyes. Like.
This is our Wholloween show if you're just joining in. So hello there, everybody. Jack, do you remember seeing this for the first time? He's in character, everybody. What did you make of it?
When he gives his vote for the out of 10, you have to do that with his fingers.
Let's have a look in the chat as well here. Bill is with us saying, Gabrielle Wolf showing how important it is to get the villain's voice right. It absolutely is. I mean, what Amelia was saying there about this being very much the setup. This is how it's supposed to be done properly, isn't it, everybody? Because this is very much the setup for what's going to happen in the second part, but it's very much its own episode as well. Hence why we're doing them over 2 parts as well. Because you can look at the Impossible Planet and just really, really enjoy it from what it's doing, because it's a proper episode in itself. It's a proper story. And I don't know if that's because it's a different writer, i.e. it's Matt doing this one. But this is a proper story, and it's written properly so that it has a beginning, a middle, and an end, which happens to go into a part 2. It's just amazing.
Sorry,
I think this.
Sorry, it's something that you, with the new stuff, you can actually like look back at this and be like, you can do a story with a start, middle, and end, and also that we also grew up with watching stories of the Doctor that it hit the proverbial, and you didn't know how he was going to worm his way out of it. And this one is a prime example of he doesn't know everything, and you're now like, how is he going to get himself out of it? And you're concerned for him. And nowadays it's like, oh, everything's wonderful and shiny. So you can look back at that as well, how good of an episode it is.
That's
that he still.
He's vulnerable in this, but he doesn't burst into tears, does he? Yeah.
Well, that's true.
Who is me?
That's an interesting viewpoint coming there from Kirst, because I remember looking at this 2006, and I liked the episode 2006. I haven't watched it since then, I must admit. So this was interesting going back to it after all these years to watch it for this show. But is there interesting, because you're saying, Kirsty, one aspect of the Doctor there, whereas I was watching it as 2006 as a fan that knew the original series, just thinking, there's more to this. He's still learning. He hasn't been everywhere yet. Even in those intervening years, we're not there. It's interesting.
That's a good point as well. This has been a good way to look at it too. Every day's a student.
I think this is the closest story I find in New Who to classic. I think this does a good job of like a classic, kind of a great merge between classic Who and New Who. I think this is what I think if they did more, and they did do it in the RTD1 era. They did some more episodes similar to this, but I think it does the perfect job of blending classic Who style and modern Who style into one. Personally, I think if they had kept this as the template of kind of two-parters and two-parters like this, then it would have even elevated what came in that kind of first RTD1 era. So I think it got the atmosphere of like a classic Who based on the Siege story, but it has the kind of, I would say, you've got more modern style characters and obviously effects that come with it. So it does a really good job of blending that.
I remember actually what there was a little bit that frustrated me back in 2006, and it does it again now. It's the beginning, and when the TARDIS arrives, and there's that really frustrating scene for me when the Doctor and Rose come out of the TARDIS, and it's very self-referential. That's when it knows what the show is, because there's that bit where she jokes with him, we could always get back into the TARDIS and disappear again, and then they laugh about it, because everybody knows, including the audience, that's not going to happen. That's not what they do. That's not what Doctor Who does. And I remember being quite frustrated at the time, thinking, no, that's not what you should be doing here. That's not what we do. Go on, Paul.
I think it's a problem with this season, particularly. The Doctor and Rose are very, very smug in this.
Yeah.
And at the start of this, they're particularly smug, which really irritates me as well, because I was beginning to like Tennant a bit, and then all this with Rose just gets too much for me, to be honest. So they're just too smug. And it even happened in School Reunion as well with Sarah. There's a lot of smugness in that as well, which is a real shame. But that I wanted to like Tennant. He's quite good in this, I have to say, but the relationship's a bit sickly sweet in this, to be honest, as well.
That's probably intertwined for Partner the Ways, or whatever the Doomsday, when she's going through the portal. So that he is he's like bollocks, is like everything's fine, and then his world goes to 360. So it's probably a bit. He did it. I can understand what he's trying to do, but it's just a bit too much. And that is, they're sitting there more and all that.
Yeah. I agree. I mean, at the time they are getting ready for. They've brought in Sarah at the beginning of this show. There's other companions in the Doctor's life for other newbies that have come in, and here they're trying to build up to that whole episode thing at the very end where Rose is going to go. Get ready for this. But I agree with you, Kirsty. I think it could have been done a little bit differently. And then again, I think to myself, why did it have to be done? Because we all went through the trauma of losing our Doctor Who girls every 2 or 3 years. Why not that? Ian, what were you going to say?
I was just going to say they were very smug with Queen Victoria as well, weren't they? In a way that Doctor previously would never have been with a major historical character. They were very, very smug with that, and that didn't sit right, really. But I mean, for me in this episode, the really irritating bit was right at the very start, where they're being advanced on by the Ood, and the Doctor's there with his sonic screwdriver, weapon. That annoyed me at the time, and it annoyed me again. But on the whole, this is probably as good as New Who, certainly original New Who, if there is such a thing, actually got, because it was generally really, really good. But I'd rather have a Scooty than a Shooty, I'll tell you that much. And I think it's...
But you want Shooty to be a floater as well, though, don't you?
No, it's a floater already, mate, trust me. But I think it's it's very telling about who it's not been written by, more than who it's been written by, if that makes sense.
It does make sense, because this is a story that here he is, hello Jack. This is a story that doesn't seem rushed in any way, shape or form. This is the story that you can tell over 2 parts and be very enjoyed about. And we'll come into the second part tomorrow, everybody. But it seems to have worked brilliantly in this story, because you're getting all those elements there. You can watch it back to back like I did and just think, wow, that's a little mini movie there. And there's more highs than there are lows, and you're not expelled from the story at any particular time. We've got lots of people in the chat giving us some great. So Stephen Braddock is seeing here, now that's how you bring back Gabrielle Wolfe. Totally. And we were all thrilled when he got that role as well, those older fans. We were like, oh, that's brilliant. No, it's great that he's got something here. I wish they'd not bother with anything else. Lex Kane is saying to us all, Toby, don't turn around. Don't turn around. That has to be, correct me if I'm wrong, panel, one of the most chilling moments of modern Doctor Who. What a scene. And it's I can't, when I was watching it the other day, I was just thinking, at the time, Will Thorpe, who plays Toby, was known for Casualty. Wasn't he? So here he is in Doctor Who, which at this point, everybody in the UK is quite big. Let's give it its due. It's getting bigger every week as well. And here's people seeing him actually doing something different, Kirsty. And he's absolutely, that scene is just brilliant. He plays it so well.
He'd also done Strictly that year, so it was a big year for him.
Oh, was that the same year on Strictly? I remember that. Here's another bit from Digby. The moment Rose's phone messaging system announces the beast, shiver.
Yeah.
I mean, this episode, even though this is the setup episode, it's all here, isn't it? These bits are absolutely here. These two, even though we've talked about this annoying bit at the very beginning, there is a great partnership here between these two. I think it's undeniable, really. It's up and running, this. And considering that this is Billy's second year, but David's first, we've got to remember that. It's really, really, it's really good, I thought. You know.
What I particularly like about Emilio, I mentioned it already, about the grittiness of the environment. I love the fact it's all dirty and metallic, and it's been lived in, which is lovely, you know.
I love it when we do that. I mean, we talk about certain scripts. Occasionally, we'll talk about certain scripts from proper Doctor Who, if done today with a decent budget and certain elements that they can do now would look brilliant. I think this show shows how that could be done. I mean, look at this picture. This is actually a fairly cheap set, to be quite honest, and very small, but it suits the story. It suits the base that they're on. The lighting is really, really good. You can't tell some of it will be cardboard, for example.
Yeah.
You know, it just looks good on screen.
Ian mentioned Seeds of Doom earlier, and it's got that Seeds of Doom interior vibe to it as well, don't you think?
Yeah.
It's that whole thing, like the guys were saying in the chat, the base under siege thing. This is a twist on it. This is a real should I use the word supernatural? Would you guys agree with that term? It's that sort of twist, isn't it?
Well, probably.
Go on.
It makes it very claustrophobic. I think they really try and get it. I think if you're going to do horror, you need to. I think it works better when the environment feels smaller. It's more claustrophobic. It just gives us an element of tension there. If the base felt really, really big and it was a lot wider, I don't think it would support the kind of atmosphere that they're trying to bring into the episode. So I think you can clearly see that they've really thought about the design and how they've done it and the themes of the episode and the atmosphere they're trying to create. It all flows well, right? And that's what the best episode, best film, best TV show do is the production design will be in harmony with the theme, the writing, and you can see that in the case with this episode.
Fair enough point. Thanks to Lex for another super chat here. It was a very clever idea in this episode for the Doctor not to have the TARDIS and how he copes without it, like they did John Pertwee's first season. It's as though he somehow knows he's going to see the old girl again at some point, though, doesn't he? Because he gets over that sort of shock when the adventure starts, and we all know what the Doctor's like. He's battling into that. But surely at some point in his mind, he's thinking, how am I going to get on? I mean, they have that amazing scene, don't they, Lex K? Which is very, very odd for Doctor Who. Now, I remember at the time being a little bit uncomfortable for this, with that scene. And it's
the
this
mortgage
one,
scene, you mean? Oh, yeah, the mortgage scene.
And I was a bit uncomfortable then. I wasn't so much on a rewatch just the other night because I'm used to all the nonsense that they throw into Doctor Who now. And this is, I know where this is all going. But it's all this thing of, I could live with you or we could get one together. I remember at the time being very uncomfortable. Was that just me? Let me know. Postcards only too. No, I mean, was it just me? Was it just me? Or was anybody else with that dialogue there thinking, what are they doing?
Well, I found it awkward this time round as well, which is really weird. I thought I'd be over it, but I found it was still a bit icky for me, But,
it's not a cradle snatcher.
Pardon? He's not a cradle snatcher. He's 900 and she's 21. What's
He's not a cradle. He's not a cradle snatcher.
Why is he not? He's 900.
It did feel like it was forced in a little bit, It was
trying to get the emotion in, you mean?
Yeah, to reinforce the narrative of Rose's ever beating heart for the Doctor. I think they'd maybe thought, well, we haven't mentioned it for a couple of episodes. Let's just make it really obvious, and it just felt very, very forced and put in for the sake of it. Really.
That's what it was trying to do, though, at the time, wasn't it? Because when you look at the episodes up to this point, they'd had some sort of emotive thing going on to it. I don't know. I was just a bit uncomfortable at the time, thinking, "Oh, I don't know if I want this in Doctor Who." And this is me starting to think, building on 2005. it's going into soap opera territory here rather than sci-fi territory. John is saying to us, I went to get a cup of tea and came back and nearly dropped it. Thanks, Jack.
I don't know. I swear to God, I don't know who that guy is.
I'd lock your door if I were you. All your windows.
He's gone.
Yeah, shocking.
Sorry, I'm late.
Oh, it's all right. We're good to see you. We're good to see you. Mark Greaves is
I'm
with
glad
us,
he's a fan of Doctor Who as well, because he was voting on them.
This could be an unpopular opinion, says Mark, but I never took to the Rose character. She got so annoying. I yearn for the days of Adric or Turlin. Now, that's going a step too far, mate. I'll tell you.
Yeah.
Whoa.
But I know what you're saying. It's what we were talking about before, wasn't it? That whole scene at the beginning and stuff like this. And Rose is, she is quite good in this episode because she becomes a sort of she's the strong female lead. Let's face it, and they've rewritten that character. But I can see previous characters from the past doing the same thing. I could see Romana doing it. I could see Sarah doing it. I could see Liz doing it.
You mean she's not the first feisty female companion?
It's strange, that, isn't it? It's strange.
Surely not.
Yeah, Pete's with us saying Scooty's scene, wasn't that filmed in a swimming pool to get that space effect?
Yeah.
Let's talk. Before we go on to all that, hello to Golden Age Geek as well. Hello to everybody in the chat. Golden Age Geek is saying to us, as someone who first saw New Who, the romance element didn't annoy me because for me, that's just how the Doctor was. Having watched all of Classic Who, and I think differently, but at the time I didn't. I know, and that's fair enough because even then, I think Golden Age Geek panel, even then I was knowing where we are now and knowing what we know now. When I look back at these things from 2005 onwards, I think it's there. I think we've got to find the new audience and get rid of the old one. And I think that's why at this point, of course, the balancing to make it successful in Britain, because it hadn't been for all of those old ones, all those old farts coming back to the show, supporting it, talking about it, bringing friends, family, talking about it at work, presenting it, being proud of it, it would have flopped. It would have flopped completely. But we were there on hand to welcome it back. Yeah. So, but it's those little elements where they're bringing those soap opera elements in Golden Age Geek for me.
But at least, though, one thing they did with this story, which were a bit reluctant to do season 1, was to go to another planet, because they avoided that for ages, didn't they? And the first planet they go to, guess what they do? They're in a quarry! Yay!
Yay!
But it looked good, didn't it? It looked really good, though, didn't it?
Yeah, it did.
Fantastic.
But as the Doctor and Ida were walking away, when they got down there and they were walking away, it was almost like it was like a substitute TARDIS, because the TARDIS is gone, but they've got this yellow capsule behind them in the background.
With a flashing light on top.
Yeah, so normally you'd see the Doctor and companion walking away from the TARDIS, but this time they're walking away from this yellow crane thing. And it's it's a bit like a bit of a TARDIS substitute, really.
Again, though, you could actually say it's a sort of another homage to previous Doctor Who, because it does remind me a bit of the Green Death, because you've got to go down, and that I find quite spooky. Going down into this planet. I mean, it's bad enough going down into the earth in the old mine workings when you go to the museums, but to do that, I just thought, ooh, what are they going into? I really liked all of that, actually. Pete Harrington is saying the Ood are beautiful creatures to introduce.
Yeah.
And Marcus Barry, hello to you. Really chilling stuff. I absolutely love it. Lex is also saying to us, sometimes in some scenes, it reminds me of Tom Baker, and it's got Tom Baker and John Pertwee vibes. What do you think about that one, Jack? I mean, how old were you when you saw this one?
I was 6, so on the initial broadcast, I don't remember much about it. But I remember it being burned into my brain. I remember the Ood and the black hole, and there's a lot of really impressive imagery with this one. And I do remember the Beast in the pits. So I thought, this is one I'm going to get on DVD. So in 2008, I got it on DVD, and I've loved it ever since. And I rewatched it recently, a couple of months back, because I thought, well, I've got to do a New Who marathon just to see if I really hate it now as much as anything else. And I have to say, Series 2 has definitely gone down, and I think what we've had from the most recent era hasn't helped. It's kind of put a sour on RTD's original era, but this story was one that didn't feel off at all. In fact, it was just as good now as I remember it when I was a kid. In fact, if not better. I love everything about this story, from the music, the lighting, the sets, the props, the actors. They're really great. The monsters. I love the story. Gabriel Wolf, Sutek. I mean, obviously, I didn't know it was him until I saw Pyramids of Mars. But even then, I thought that voice sounds familiar when I heard him in Pyramids of Mars. And then it was like, oh, it is the same person. And I was like, that's really cool. But
voice like is amazing.
This is probably going to be pure cringe, but I love this so much. I actually wanted to. Well, I designed a sort of concept for a video game around it.
Oh wow! Now that would be interesting.
Wow. Yeah, well, I'm not going to show it off because it's cringe. But
well, there's also I don't know. There might be a concept there you can sell somewhere else. We'll talk. Copyright who's used. Let's have a go. We've got this here as well. Bill Lowry is saying to us here: in industrial areas, you only like the areas you use and need, so the darkness is accurate and appropriate. And we've got here Lex building on what you said there, Jack, as well. The music to this was fantastic. I have to say, it was. I'd forgotten about all this sort of weird sounding stuff in this particular episode and all this orchestral stuff and the violin, and it really is.
It's a good score from Murray. It really is. Yeah,
it really is, because it's not horror. It is slightly spooky because the instruments he's using, and that it captures the whole thing. And it's also really sad, isn't it? There's some very sad moments in these two episodes, and he captures those moments beautifully. So yeah. Well done to Murray Gold.
I think I'm starting to see why the guy who wrote this never wrote again, because Russell realized, holy shit, this guy's making me look awful.
Oh, do you know? You've just
Love and Monsters is after this, isn't it? So
a lot of fans do say this about this writer, but obviously it's all alleged. But I wonder what he would have made of the show had he got his grubby little protuberances on it. I don't know. Stephen Braddock is saying the reveal of the beast is well built up, seeing glimpses on screen and kept back to part 2. That's the way you do it, because it's got that whole sort of real sort of sci-fi element of keeping the monsters in the dark, because you start to form, and this was happening, guys, and who viewers, as I'm rewatching this, I know who's there, I know what this is about, but I'm starting to think about it in this episode. It's that good. I'm starting to think, what could hang on a minute, you know what it is, you've seen it, you know what's down there, you've done the thumbnail for the next show, what you talking about? Isn't that clever?
This has got great atmosphere. Jack said he could remember when he was 6 watching it, but did Emilio and Kirsty, were they afraid of watching it when they were watching it originally? Was it scary at points for you?
It didn't scare me off my pants. I thought Gabriel Wolf's voice was quite chilling. I think it's more chilling than outright scary. I think also the fact that you really get the feel of the unknown. You don't know what's below. So I think that kind of uneasiness when you're watching it, but not kind of outright I'm scared my pants. I think watching Blink, watching the Weeping Angel, that would more scary.
Different,
more chilling. Yeah, it's a different style of horror, I would say.
That's what Doctor Who always used to do.
If I was 6 watching it, I'd be terrified of that. I really would. Maybe that says something about me. I don't know.
But this is the brilliance of Doctor Who. I mean, we always talk about how Doctor Who can do different formats. In reality, it can't. To be quite honest, it's not that good. It's not that adaptable. I think what people always meant there is you can get different elements of the same theme. So you're just talking, Emilio, there about how you would a different scare in this story to Blink, because it's 2 different scares, and you can be scared in different ways. He tries to do it again later on with the silence, with a different scare. About forgetting things very quickly and possibly repeat. That's what I think Doctor Who does best, and I think the scares in this are traditional Doctor Who, because it is that sort of behind the sofa element here. It's because you can't see what it is. Don't turn around. The clue's in the statement. Don't turn around. If it says don't turn around, don't turn around. Close your eyes, move forward. I don't know. We're getting lots of people chatting about what we were talking about there earlier, about the Doctor and Rose's conversation about the mortgage. Paul Rose saying, it never really bothered me. I guessed it wouldn't go anywhere and understood they were trying to capture a younger audience. It worked. Also, I am fine with dropping the element now. Yeah.
I wonder why.
Yeah. Julianne is with us saying the mortgage scene is yuck. It turns out it was foreshadowing. I didn't like it then, and I don't like domestic Doctor Who stories now. You and me both, Julianne, because I don't yet. And as Dalek Eye is also pointing out, and yet he ends up living in a house with a family with a person called Rose. Isn't that? I mean, the damage that does actually to the context of the stories they produced in their previous reign, if you like, in their previous era. Hello to the Forbidden Man. It's lovely to see you. Hi all. This was a good story. One of the few I was amused by. Before the rubbish love story of Rose and the Doctor, this was the start of the boring mush that ran and ran and ran. It was all about this build-up, wasn't it? As we were saying there, it was all about the build-up of what's going to happen. I mean, it's even hinted in this episode. She's going to die. She's going to get the chop, doesn't she? I mean, it's putting the audience on that sort of because the Rose was a big deal at the time. I still don't understand why, to be quite honest. And what's this from Digby? The Dr. Rose romance worked as a one-off for me. The mistake was that Moffat carried on and amplified it. The romance should have been one and done. Yeah. Paul Richards, hang on a second. That's 4 on the Paulometer right now. The Doctor flirting with Rose is atrocious. He's physically different to mere mortals, so it's an interspecies relationship. Ugh. Yeah. Stephen Bradford was pointing that out. The mortgage scene, funny, ended up in living in a house. Yeah, it's like trying to. Yeah, it is interspecies stuff. Well,
you do see the purpose of that. I get the purpose of that scene is really to emphasize that the TARDIS really is gone. And the Doctor really thinks that that he's probably going to have to head back to get the lift, and like he's not. I can't remember ever the Doctor up until that point ever having that kind of conversation. Well, if I got no TARDIS, that's my home. It's what am I going to do when I get back to Earth? So I think what they were trying to get at was good. I just think trying to add the kind of Rose's romance for the Doctor element into it, I think we tipped it over the edge of what they were trying to probably get across with that scene.
What really made me hate Rose, though, was that really dislike her now is just how little she cares about her mom. I mean, the Doctor turns to her and says, "I've trapped you here," and she just kind of says, "Oh, well, being stuck with you, that's not that bad." And even at the end of the series, she knows that when the bridge closes, she'll never see her mom again, but she doesn't even think twice. And even the Doctor's like, "What is the matter with you?" And that's what I don't understand why Russell did that, because I love series 1 Rose. I think she was wonderful, but then Russell kind of just wrote her as I don't know what he was trying. He's doing that thing again, like he did in Dot and Bubble. Like he says he's pandering to, that generation that doesn't exist, but then he mocks them in the same thing. And it's like, I don't get what you're doing, Russell. Are you trying to make us love Rose or hate her?
No, he was actually trying to get this whole thing about throughout this whole second series. He's trying to get this thing about the British public and the fans like Rose, and she's being written out. She's going in this second series, and let's build up. It's all about publicity and trying to get everybody to have a shock value, isn't it? And to think, because remember, people did think they're bumping her off. I mean, the famous story is Peter Davison phoned RTD and said, "Hang on, my son's lover. Are you really going to do this?" To which Russell T Davies said, "You hypocrite! You killed off Adric." That's what it was all about, Jackie. It was at the time. It was all about this whole thing about just building up this anticipation so that he could build up an audience for his 2 episodes, which I would say right now are weaker than these 2.
But they kill any tension stone dead by bringing her back in season 4. It's pointless.
Well, they can't leave things alone this lot, can they?
It's like bringing Donna back and doing all that nonsense. When you're Star Beast, it's like
when you're 8 years old, like between 6 and 8, that's quite a while. So I was overjoyed to see her coming back. But if this was happening now, I'd be like, "Oh, it seems only yesterday I saw her." But to be honest, the one where he really took the pee was Martha. You had her for the whole of series 3, then you had her in Torchwood, then she immediately came back into series 4 twice. And then just when you thought he's finally done waving his trophy around, she comes back for a little cameo in the end of time. I'm like, come on.
Jack on the kind of romance scene or the scene around the mortgage. I do think it plays into with Jackie and the fact that he not really cares about his mum. I think the whole thing is playing into what conversation that they have in the Army of Ghosts, if I remember correctly, where Jackie said to Rose that you're going to be that daughter on a planet somewhere.
You keep on
changing. You're no longer kind of you're no longer the Rose of before. You're not human anymore. And I think this is playing into that conversation that she has. So
I mean,
there is a narrative purpose for it. I just don't think they executed it well enough. They made her, I think, too dislikable and too kind of icky.
The trouble is, if Rose had been a character over, let's say, 4 seasons, you could almost do that sort of, well, she's been traveling for so long, she's become desensitized to humanity. But the trouble is, we as the audience haven't seen her long enough. Like, she goes from 1 to 10. And that's the trouble. There isn't. I mean, in series 1, she's downright abusive to Mickey, who might I say is the most underrated character in the whole show. Which, you know, I'm surprised he didn't run off and join MGTOW after dealing with that cow. It's insane, you know. I'm just, and because I never picked up on this as a kid, but hashtag, you know, justice for Mickey, because this woman was an entitled little brat.
Well,
which, you know, it's difficult.
I suppose it's part of her development as well, because, you know, where she gets to at the end of this. We've got Steve Thompson there, going back to the Impossible Planet. Steve Thompson says to us here, it's what you don't see that scares. It fires the imagination and the half-open door.
Yeah, I wasn't scared by this. Like the silence, the silence reminded me of Buffy, and I still keep my pants over Buffy. But this absolutely fine. I thought this was epic back then and still now as well.
Great.
I think when Toby's possessed, they're particularly scary moments. If you were 6 or 7, that would petrify you, surely, because that is really scary stuff, don't you think?
Well, you'd want that. I would hope. When I look at this, I think I hope it did scare some of them. Stephen saying to us here, I love the bit after Don't Turn Around when the symbols appeared on Toby with those awful blood red eyes. So yeah, I would hope that something like this did scare the kids a wee bit, because this is where Will's actually playing a completely different thing here. This was quite violent in a way. This is quite aggressive, isn't it? Because this is the angry beast here. So this is the sign of what this thing can do. And it's also psychological. But I have to also point out here as well, as some of you have pointed out in the chat, this makeup must have been hell to the continuity here. I mean, it's absolutely. We've not seen anything quite like this in Doctor Who before, and I think they really went for that whole horror aspect here. You know, this is full-blown Exorcist type stuff, isn't it? This was really
definitely,
good.
yeah.
This is really, really good here. I'm still very impressed with this.
Iconic.
It is actually in that sense. We even got an action figure model of him, one without the markings on and one with the markings on, which I think was quite fun. I do want to mention, as some of you have in the chat here, we do need to mention the supporting cast, because they are brilliant. What a cast of players. They are just superb. And really, there isn't one of these characters that I think, I don't like you. There's something brilliant about them. They've been through hell, literally, to get to this planet. They're stuck together here. They're facing all this. They've got that whole thing, as the Doctor points out, with that speech about, oh, humans, oh, can I have a hug? You know, oh, you're all insane, though. But there's just something about these players. They've bonded as actors as well as the characters. It's just wonderful. And I think we should just give them a shout out, because they are absolutely brilliant. You know?
Yeah, particularly the actor who's in charge of the Ood.
Oh, hang on, Amelia, what are you saying?
So I was just saying that you get a real sense of their personality really quickly. Like the first kind of like couple of sentences from each character, you just very quickly get an insight into who they are very, very quickly. And as you say, JT, it feels like they're a group that have been working together for a while. So there's like a natural chemistry there between each of the individuals, and they've all got their own separate kind of roles as well and backgrounds. So I thought that was really good. The only thing that bugged me was the two guards with the security guy. Basically, when they see the Doctor and Rose walk, the security guy really shocked to see that there's a human being. I'm watching the security guards, and I don't think their acting was necessarily the best in that. But take away those two security guards.
Well, they were there to be killed off.
Yeah, just give them a red shirt. Give them a red shirt, and it's absolutely fine. We know what they're there for.
Hey, give me a shot, at least.
Hang on a sec. If you haven't seen them, because you weren't around at the time, but have a look at these. Hold on 1 second. There we go with that. There's the Toby action figures from Character Options from that year. One with the markings and one without the markings. Very, very clever. Hey?
What's his hand doing? It's very suspicious there.
It's an action figure, you know.
Yeah, fair enough.
It's an action. It's supposed to be holding. let's see what you're saying in the chat. It's great to see you so much. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining us. Rodney is with us. Hello, Rodney. How are you? As a classic Who fan, I always look for the episode where I accept the new actor as the Doctor, and this was the story where I thought that Tennant is the Doctor. Oh, that's good to know, Rodney. I remember at the time not taking to Tennant in this series at all. In fact, it took me until Donna came along, i.e. Catherine Tate, to think, yeah, okay, and then he left. It took me that long. But it's good. Looking back, though, I might have been a bit harsh, my younger self, because I look in this one, I do see aspects, as somebody was saying earlier, of there's certain aspects of Baker in this, really.
Yeah.
More than Pertwee for me. Third Doctor Ian, you're the Pertwee guy as well. Do you see what I'm coming from there?
I could imagine this story if you took it and planted it in the classic era 70s. I could see Pertwee in it, but it's more a Tom Baker. You know, it's like Paul said, it's the kind of corridors that you would imagine on the Arctic base or the Antarctic base. It's also what you could imagine a more industrial, lower levels of a sand miner might be, with robots walking around. That'd be really good. But on the whole, I think it's what you were saying with not taking to Tennant and stuff. I mean, you know, in this, I did pretty much take to him, although I would have wished Eccleston had stayed longer, I think, as a lot of us do. But in his first series, we've got, as we've touched on, that ridiculous scenario where it's Breathless Rose got the hots. Then we go into the series 3, where it's Breathless Martha who confessed to having the hots. It was only when you got to Donna, where she was the absolute polar opposite and did not want that under any circumstances, that it was a proper, almost doctor companion relationship, you know, that could actually get on with the narrative of the stories, rather than having this subtext of potential romance, which did get a little bit grating, really, I think.
Maybe they learned that, but they learned it too late by the time they came along. I don't know. Thanks again to Lex for another super chat here. The filming felt like Ridley Scott and James Cameron. I know what you mean here. I really do, because the direction on this is really on point, isn't it? And it's very tight here.
It's got a very Aliens feel to it, especially when they're crawling in the vents. You know, I can't help but feel like that was inspired by Alien.
Yeah,
I think right. It also just adds to the isolation. And what I've also noticed is this one is very action movie. Like, you know, in classic Who, there's lots of it, but in New Who, it's very rare you get someone actually shooting a gun. And I think Mr. Jefferson does that. He really holds his own. He's like, you know, no, we're going to slaughter as many as we can, you know, to survive as long as we can. And it's very rare that Doctor Who has the balls to do that anymore. So that's another reason I appreciate this one. And I say to people when they say, oh, Doctor Who's that camp, silly, stupid show, and it's like, check this one out. You know,
and it's a shame you have to go back into the past though to do, isn't it? You know, it really is. But we've been doing that as original fans for ages. You know, when new fans came along and said, "Oh, it didn't do it," have a look at this. Here's Pyramids of Mars. Here's Genesis of the Daleks. Here's Terror of the Autons. It's one of those things about Doctor Who, I guess. Digby's with us, saying to us here, the crew of the base convey a lovely sense of being beleaguered and are trying to cope. Totally. Mrs. Lisa Pertwee's girl has joined us with Salah Atu. Salut Atu. Nice to see you. And Stephen Braddock. I agree, really do believe they are a team who've been together for ages before the Doctor arrives. That's a great point, Stephen, because it's there, isn't it? It's absolutely there. When they walk in, it's like, oh, you know, are they real? I felt at one point that we were all going to prod the Doctor and Rose to go, actually, no, you are. Brilliant.
It feels like a real place. That's what I get from it. You know, it feels like a real functioning base, you know what I mean?
Well, because it looks good.
Yeah.
And the fact as well, you know, you just know it's going to be several little sets. But the claustrophobia actually works in this case. I bet they did an arc in space on them and moved them round. Oh, yes. I'm sure they did. Bill is saying to us, hiya, Bill. Mr. Jefferson's Danny Webb death was a clear nod to Aliens. Would saying that's the tiny what you were saying there, Jack. Yeah, you can see bits and pieces of it actually, especially on a playback. And Leo James Ward, good to see you, sir. How are you? This is a stellar episode as a whole. I think the two-parter is one of the finest of the modern era. It's quite stunning. I'm going to say it again, Leo. This is an example of how a Doctor Who two-parter should be because it works perfectly. We are going to be looking at part 2 tomorrow, which is actually Halloween itself here as our Wholloween season. So come back tomorrow and join us. We talk about that one as well.
It's funny you said it earlier, GT, that you think the 2 episodes are like 2 separate entities. I find it quite hard to separate New Who 2-parters because I don't separate classic Doctor Who stories. I don't make the Daleks 7 parts and 7 separate parts. So I find it quite hard to disassociate them as 2 separate entities. It's one story for me. So it's quite hard to do both.
I don't know if I said that. I think it's a case of it is one story. You can watch them together as a film. And it does bleed as a film. I think this is a case of this is how a 2-parter should be. If you're going to do a 2-parter in modern Doctor Who these days at that length of an episode, it has to be a beginning, a middle, and end over the 90 minutes.
Yeah.
So really what they should be writing is a 90-minute screenplay and then cutting it in the middle with a cliffhanger.
What I mean is, though, it's a bit like the what do you call a Hartnell story? Is it the Unearthed Child? Is it 100,000 years BC? What is it called? So Impossible Planet and the Satan Pit should be called Impossible Planet. That's what the episode's called.
I think so. Yeah, it should be the Impossible
rather than
Planet
having
part 1
2
and part
separate
2.
episodes. You know what I mean? It's like Army of Ghosts is Army of Ghosts. You know what I mean? That's what it should be called. But
it should be called the Impossible Planet part 1 and part 2, or the Satan Pit part 1 or part 2. But of course, back then they were trying to do something different, weren't they? They're still doing it, aren't they? It's as though the audience won't. I remember them saying, RTD at the same time, we were going to do that, but we thought the audience wouldn't come back if they saw part 2 on it. Total nonsense.
Yeah. It's
a total nonsense. It would have built it up a bit more to say, that's the second part of this one, so I better watch it, as television has proved before and since. Paul Rose is saying to us, there's a lot of good in Modern Who up until later Capaldi. It all went downhill from there. Okay. And Legion of James, I could imagine this story with both Baker or Pertwee in it. However, Tennant definitely attempts to embody Baker at moments, but in my opinion fails and ends up coming over a bit irritating.
I think this is like a Tom Baker style story, but it had the John Pertwee themes. That's how I would summarize it, in the sense that it got the similar themes to the kind of the Damons is trying to touch on, which is the Doctor's view on magic and the kind of more supernatural elements, and his kind of more scientific, more kind of logical, kind of ways of thinking. And it's the same similar kind of themes in this story to a Pertwee kind of story, but it got the kind of Arkin Bay, Tom Baker style kind of base under siege element. So I can see why everyone's mentioning Tom Baker and Pertwee. I'm not sure. I think it's got a mixture of both in different ways.
Yeah,
it's really good how they took the time to address a problem. Is how can you fire a gun in enclosed space that's entirely made out of metal? I feel like they wouldn't bother to address that now, but Jefferson does say it's a special kind of bullet that only affects flesh. So he can fire that gun in the vent, and it won't ricochet off everywhere. And it's nice that they took the time to think about that. It's like they put thought into it.
Yeah, it's good writing, isn't it, Jack? It is good writing, and actually saying to your audience, come along with the story, get involved with this. And I think something like this writing here from Matt actually does get you into the story. You become a bit more involved with it. And isn't it nice, everybody, to rewatch some modern Doctor Who that doesn't hit you with some sort of agenda every other minute or something? You can actually just watch it and relax into it and enjoy the story. Rose Kirby is saying, I'm really glad I know what you're talking about. A big thank you for this stream. You're very welcome, Ro. We've got all those elements there of Doctor Who you don't know that we're trying to get you to see, and we've got this stuff that you will know, so you're very, very welcome. Stephen Braddock is saying that I love the scene where Toby is on the surface of the planet before he shatters the glass in silence with an evil maniacal grin. And again, that music on that scene, that is actually quite chilling now, isn't it, Emilio? It's sort of like, what is this? Is wow.
Yeah, the violin score, isn't it? It's beautiful. And I also love the emotion of the I can't remember the name of the character, but the young 20-year-old. That's it, yeah. Her kind of reaction to seeing him out there.
I love it when
he's also got me thinking, would there some sort of like she was getting quite emotional as she was reaching out to him? Was there, something more there, in terms of their relationship that we didn't really get to delve into? But I thought it was beautifully played out. And then like the minute she realized he was, going to smash the glass, like her acting to it was brilliant, and you really got the sense of just sheer fear from her perspective. So yeah, like it would be a bewildering thing to see your kind of workmate out there, all kind of tattooed up, but kind of not in their spacesuit. I think, yeah, it's great, and I love how the devil possession is also screwing up the electrical voice, right? The voice as well. I thought that was really good as well. It made that even more kind of a chilling scene. I think everything about that scene was beautifully done. Even afterwards, when they obviously see that she's dead. Again, the music, it just again really.
Oh, that's a horrible scene, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's just that line where he says, "Oh, I found her."
Yeah.
It's absolutely horrible. I remember at the time, Jack, watching this, and I was watching it with mates at the time back in 2006, and this bit here, there was an audible because this was a shock. This was the real shocker because this was Doctor Who showing something that they wouldn't dream of doing today.
What reminds me of is that Linda with a Y moment when the Daleks come out the window and shoot her. It's like that.
Yeah.
It's horrible,
Go on, Jack.
This also has my favourite theme in all of the RTD run by Murray Gold. I'm trying to think of other examples it was used, but it's that kind of violin as she's kind of drifting away into the black hole and Jefferson does his speech. And I don't know what it is, but this is so powerful. It actually almost makes me cry. It's that good. I think it's used throughout series 2, and it's even series 1 and 2 mostly, but then it's remixed a little bit for later series. But it's such a good theme, and it sets the tone so well. And I think what is incredible about this, like you say, there's such good characters. Like, you've known this girl for what, 5 minutes, if that, and somehow her death still manages to be very impactful, especially when Ida says that she was only 20 years old, although what you're doing bringing a 20-year-old to an impossible planet in the middle of space is beyond me.
It's work experience, Jack, that's what it is.
Yeah, that's it. Into a black hole. That's what can go wrong.
Yeah, things have moved on in the future. I mean, we're more or less there now, to be quite honest. It's all there now. But a lot of people are saying similar things in the chat here. Thank you all for joining us. It's great to see you for our Wholloween review of The Impossible Planet. We've got Legion of James saying to us, when you watch old New Who, when they were still putting in time, talent, passion, and effort into the stories, it really does just bring home how awful it has become. It's actually heartbreaking. You're sitting here watching The Impossible Planet and The Sacred Brit, and you think, what? It's as though they've decided, and they have, haven't they? They've decided what the audience needs to see now, and they wouldn't dream of producing something like this again. They just couldn't, and they haven't got a leading man that could carry this sort of drama off.
Compared to
sorry, Amelia, I'm just saying, Golden Age Geek is saying, if anything, naming the episodes differently confuses audience more, as some may tag along for the second part, not knowing it's the second part of a story. True. Okay, Amelia, what are you going to say?
I was going to say, you compared it to Space Babies, right? Like, which is meant to be kind of, I mean, it's just like you can't even compare it, but just that it doesn't, like, this is when Doctor Who was taking itself seriously, and it's just the complete opposite nowadays. As you say, and they'd be too worried about, showing somebody die, or about people's feelings, etc. So they would never be. Yeah, you're right. They would never be able to recreate this in kind of 2024, unfortunately.
But even then, this wasn't like an every week occurrence, because in this series alone, and this is one of the problems I have with it, is you have episodes that are as dark and engaging and brilliant as this, and then next week you have bloody Love and Monsters and Fear Her, and it's like this series is all over the place, and that's one of my biggest problems with it. I could happily just watch these 2 episodes as like, I'll just watch these on their own. But in the context of a marathon, it really does hit you the quality difference, between the rest of it.
I think that's, again, when you've got an issue with fans running a show that is popular with fans, because these people, don't forget, when they came back to Doctor Who, they were well aware. They'd lived, along with Paul and Third Doctor Ian and myself and many of the others in the chat here, through the wilderness years. They'd read the same articles as us. They'd been to the same conventions as us. They'd seen the same TV shows as us. And there was a general thing about, Doctor Who's format can do this, 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 and this. It has to do this. Time was never used in Doctor Who. Blah, blah, blah. And they've come along with this episode. They're saying, we can do all this. We can change it. So the inconsistent you're talking about there, I'm sure they would turn around, Jack, and say, well, actually, you can't do the same show every week or every 2 weeks or whatever it's going to be, because Doctor Who has to change as he travels around. But it's an interesting point you've got there. Another interesting point is from Paul Richards, who says it's channeling the Sensorites, this story. I prefer Hartnell over Tennant because he's a genuine eccentric, odd-looking type, especially in the wig. And Darren App Ken is with us saying this story works so well because of some of the interiors were filmed at a former heavy industrial plant in Pontypool, which adds to the gritty atmosphere. It totally does, doesn't it? I mean, they do the similar thing again the year after with 42, where they go to that sort of factory type thing. But as Paul was saying earlier, it looks good because of it, because you've got the height here as well. I mean, it must have been great for James Strong as the director because he managed to get some wonderful shots. I mean, the bit where the Ood, that horrible bit where the Ood are sort of getting the red eye.
Yeah,
but you've got these three on a gantry, which you know is done at this factory, isn't it? And it looks great because they are actually looking down at this pit, if you like, where the Ood are. The Ood are looking up as well, and it gives you some fantastic shots.
There's one thing that Ood reminded me of. I think they're superb and they look great. They're great monsters. One of my favourite New Who creations.
Are they monsters?
Well, they're kind of when they're possessed. They are, but they've got that wall of quality of being sinister and cute at the same time. If that makes sense, you know what I mean? But they have that wonderful Zoidberg thing from Futurama, don't they? A little bit.
Yeah. There's a bit. It just shows you how we are, though, as an audience, as humans are, because you judge them. This is Doctor Who, that must be a monster. And then it'll turn around and say, would you like a bar of chocolate? You know,
yeah,
are you going to have something to eat here? I mean,
I don't know if many people picked up on this, but the camera work between when they're not possessed and when they're possessed. So when they're not possessed, it's quite slow. They're quite slow. It's very calm. And then when Zach is kind of stuck in the control room and he sees them coming down the corridor, the camera is constantly jumping, and it's moving really, really quick. And you get lots of close-ups, lots of backs, some upward shots. And, they always focus on the eyes a lot more. And it just... you can feel that they're not the same creatures that you saw at the start of the episode, And then you have, I was going to touch on this in the next episode, but there's a really sad scene where they're not possessed anymore. And it's just like, you feel it straight away. They're not the same. And I think that's really cool how they've done that. It just shows how much effort was put into this one.
Well, it does really, and a lot of thought about this as well. And there's no real cop-outs, I don't think, in this. And this... as we're saying, though, this whole episode here, isn't it, Who Viewers? The Impossible Planet is how to set up your second episode properly, because this is an episode in itself, and it's just so good. If there was any episode they'd come to me and say, right, what of modern Doctor Who would you sit down into a cinema and watch? This is the one. The two parts, Impossible Planet and its second part. This is the one I'd sit down and watch in the cinema quite happily, just because of all these thrills and spills, cinematic quality it's got, the music score, and the acting. I'm going to say again, this team that we've got on here, just what brilliant casting this is. Really are good.
Can I give a shout out to Stylus Carson's Ood voice? That is superb. That really makes the Ood for me. Such a great voice. It works on it's a Gabriel Wu thing a little bit with that as well. It's got sinister and charming at the same time. You know what I mean?
It is, but it's also it throws you because suddenly here's a butler from Downton Abbey.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
It just throws you that bit. Hello to Brian. Brian Mason's with us. All the episodes back then were memorable. These current ones, no one cares less. You're not going to get any arguments for us on this channel. I'll tell you there, right? And I'd like to say hello to the benign crinoid. Hello to you. Hope you are well. Not seen you on the channel before, so welcome to Who's Views.
Is there such a thing as a benign crinoid?
No, it'll still munch you. Love and Monsters makes my toes curl so hard I need a voucher for Carpet World. Yeah, you can send it to whosviews1@gmail.com because I need new carpets, quite frankly. I'll have to look at them. What have we got here? Season 13 proves you can have a darker theme because a classic became a classic forevermore, says Pete Harrington. Thank you. Yep. Legion of James, the poor Ood. I'm sure there's a cream for that. Yeah, bless you. Oh, and this is an interesting one from Paul Richards. It's also channeling robots of death with the servants being taken over. I never thought of that.
And their eyes glowing.
Yeah.
I suppose. Yeah. Do you know what? I'd never got that in. I'd never even seen that.
The Ood look like they're carrying an Alexa, don't they? Which, of course, weren't around them. It's like a round Alexa.
Well, I love the Donna one about the Purcell bowl, for the washing powder. That kind of, that's very good.
Yeah.
I think with the episode titles, I think it's right. It can give people misleading ideas that part 2 is actually part 1 of a new, or just a new episode. I think they could have probably thought that out better and maybe giving it an overarching title. I don't know what you'd call it. Maybe, for argument's sake, let's say The Beast. So The Beast episode 1, The Impossible Planet, and The Beast episode 2, The Satan Pit. Maybe something like that.
It's an alternative.
Yeah. Because it did. I think it did mislead people. Definitely.
Well, yeah. I think it's one of the many things they got wrong, and they still get wrong. I mean, we went through 26 years of superior time travel with the same story title for 4 to 6 weeks, and nobody thought it was part of that whole thing that Doctor Who was supposed to be. Oh, there's a cliffhanger, and you've got to come back. It was part of that whole magic. That's how it was set up, wasn't it? It was supposed to be like all those old things there, where you have to come back to continue the story. But I think we're all agreed that in this day and age, you had that, and it didn't happen, I think. But I think that's down to sheer dumb luck because it was popular. But it could have been a case of, right, oh, that's done. And then they don't come back. Or they see something in the Radio Times, so it's part 2. Yeah. Or they tune in. That's what I'm trying to say. They tune in to say, I've missed the first part of this. Why would I want to watch the second bit?
But bizarrely on Classic, they would go up and down the viewing figures. People might see part 1 and jump back in part 4, and part 4 is really high up. People don't always tune in all the time, do they? That's the thing. They sometimes catch up later.
Oh yeah. Well, of course, we all know. Television's changed.
Yeah, of course.
I think they got more reason now with BBC. So obviously, BBC iPlayer wasn't out when this was
correct
in 2006. Yeah. I actually think now there's more reason that they just stick with one title for if they do a 2-parter, because you can just go, like, for those people that missed part 1, they can just go on iPlayer and watch it at any point. So I actually think there's more reason maybe now than there was in 2006 for that argument for keeping the title the same.
Yeah.
Well, it's so fun to, when you go out and buy a Classic Who DVD, it's like, even though the episodes are only 20 minutes, like, I don't have to wait till next Saturday. It's right there. So you get to watch the whole story in one go.
And with something like this, Jack, it was so easy. Because I'd say I hadn't watched this since 2006. So this was the first time I'd gone back to this. And I sort of retained information because I liked it back then. But it was so easy to go from the first part to the second part. Just like, okay, oh yeah, it's coming on straight away. It's a DVD. Let's get on with it. I'm not gonna, diss that in any way. I just thought I'm gonna sit here and watch this. I'm gonna carry on and do it right now because I was enjoying it. I was engaged, and I haven't been with Modern Who for such a long time. I'd forgotten how good this was. I really had, and I think it's down to everything. It's down to the excellent script, good performances, the direction, the setting, the music. It just all comes together. Do you not think?
And the production design.
Yeah, the production design. It's just all there.
Sorry. I get very I get a lot of Base Under Siege vibes from this, like something that maybe would have been in the Troughton era, especially because his entire era kind of consisted of Base Under Siege.
Yeah, more or less. Yeah. Well, that's exactly what it is. I mean, they're on this piece of rock which shouldn't exist. I love the way they bring that in, by the way, because there's the mystery, and you just know the Doctor's going to love that. Yeah. It can't be. It can't be. Well, it is, Colin.
It's more for the next episode, but I love his speech that he does when he's dangling down the pit, and he's like, well, and she's like, do you really think it's the devil? And it's like, well, I'll admit I haven't seen everything, but that's why I travel to be proved wrong. And that's wonderful. I just think that encapsulates the character for me. And I think I know Tennant definitely has his bad moments, and I can see that now having go back and rewatching it, but I think it shows what he can do when he's given a good script. And I really did feel the Doctor coming through him. Especially, it was nice to actually get him away from Rose and down with that woman Ida. And of course, he does something that wouldn't be allowed anymore. He says to Ida, "Oh, that's half of a good plan. I go down, not you." And he really was authoritarian there. It's like, no, I'm going down, not you. It's like, yeah. And I love that. Just take control. It's like, no, I'm going down.
I've often said, haven't I? You mentioned her there, and I want to bring her into this now as well, because Ida, this is another one of those beautiful examples of the companion we didn't get. Yeah. I mean, she works so well with David Tennant, doesn't she? This is Claire Rushbrook, of course, everybody, who's playing Ida Scott. But this character is a Doctor Who companion. She is screaming to stay on board the TARDIS here. She's screaming to go on these adventures. And I just think, oh, we was robbed, Gov, yet again. And she's another example of those actors of a certain age, shall we say, because we talked about the Mira, didn't we, in our Worlds Below part, similar age here to Claire, and how good she was with the Matt Smith Doctor. And here we've got Ida. She's the one that's driving him, you know, the Doctor as well. She's sort of egging him on a little bit to say, come on, we're just a bit bigger. I just think she's brilliant.
And she's on his level as well, which is really good, don't you think?
But she's also got that mystery, hasn't she, Paul? She's got that sort of, who are you? What? How can? What's going on here? You know,
but she's got the Romana Liz Shaw type vibe that she's on his level intellectually, which is good. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
she's a grown up. That's a fact.
Yeah,
she's a grown woman. She's you can tell she's a very intelligent, also emotionally intelligent. Very her kind of Jack pointed out the line before when the younger 20-year-old dies. Where she got, she was only 20, but you really felt the emotion in her words. She's clearly very empathetic. So I think those are all really, really, and she's fully formed as a character. And I think it does also kind of shine the light on Rose a little bit with her kind of sometimes, not so much in this episode, but with the whinging and the moaning and the whining. And actually, the Doctor does work better, I feel, mostly actually with older companions rather than like a kind of
they did a great thing with the show Don't Tell. Is as soon as you see Ida for the first time, she's right next to Scooty, so and they seem to be together, so you already sort of know in the first shot that they seem to almost, are they related, like are they or are they good friends or something, so you kind of feel that bond between them from when you first see them, and it only makes that scene all the more heartbreaking, which is a clever bit of camera work.
Yeah. I again, just watching these episodes here, I remembered how much I liked Ida. I just thought, I think you're all right about the sort of maturity about from the actor as well, who gets the role, and the difference between the Rose character and the Ida character. Emilio, to tie in with your point there, though, I always think it's better when a companion isn't bickering with the Doctor, as the 1980s proved so well.
Yeah.
Honestly, we had different ages of companions there, but all that bickering got on my nerves after a while. I have to say, I remember about 20 minutes in.
Too much bickering, wasn't there?
It was far too much.
I think it was within RTD's gift to give the Doctor an older companion, and he would have had to be stupid. And I mean, let's face it, he comes across as stupid, but he would have had to be stupid to not have noticed how well the Doctor worked with an older companion. So the fact that he didn't do it until you got to Donna, the first 3 years, the crucial first 3 years, if you like, to establish the program back again, the fact that he didn't do what clearly worked really well is quite telling for him, I think.
But isn't it telling Ian that he didn't do it now in his reboot when he's come back again? He's gone young and young again.
By now, though, he's brought the program back to get it there that he can then later use as a platform for his agenda, which is what we've got now. All we have now is just agenda. We have no interest in maintaining the legacy of what went before.
And can I just say on behalf of my generation, which everyone hates, that
it's true.
Yeah, he's admitting it, folks. So there's a bit of a thing where lots of people think that we all, just like the Doctor being young, and we all like the companions being young. But actually, most people that I've spoken to, that I know that have grown up with it, or people that I'm just coming across now in the workplace, they all say Donna was my favorite, and they preferred how they were best friends, and not all the romance stuff. And I've even spoken to, there was a lad who's working in B&M who served me, and I was actually buying the B&M sets, and I had to say to him, I'm not a scalper, I'm just picking this one up for problem being. And then he said, I haven't watched it since Peter Capaldi. And I was like, oh yeah. And he's like, did you like him? He's like, yeah, he was my favorite. So, there's like this misconception that we're ageist, but actually it's those and I mean no disrespect to women or people like Kirsty and all the wonderful women in this fandom, but there is a very annoying breed of fan that RTD sadly brought in, and that's the fangirl. And
That's a small minority, though.
Yeah, and they're very loud,
Yes,
unfortunately.
it is. But
So a lot of
it's more down to the show business elements, Jack, who are in charge of the show, and they're they are assuming that their audience, of which they get all these reports that they pay hundreds of pounds for, are telling them that this is what young people want. But who are they going to get that information from? Have they been to you or Emilio or Kirsty? No, they've been to some highly pretentious snob who's just graduated from a media course, or certain Doctor Who fans that we might know, like Crystal Meth, who says, "Oh, we have to watch this at certain speeds." That's where they get their information from, and then they assume that the entire generation is like that, and it's wrong, because give any generation story and they'll follow it. And this is what the Impossible Planet is doing here. It's giving you a story. You guys, you three here, were captured by this story as young children. Paul, Third Doctor, and I were captured by this as teenagers.
Let's go with that. It's fine.
That's absolutely true.
Nobody noticed. It's fine.
But that's the point. We all got involved, no matter what our ages were. And also, you've got to remember as well that at this particular point, the story brought in the British public, because I was talking to somebody just yesterday or whenever it was this week, saying, "Oh, on my channel this week we're going to be looking at the Satan Pit," and he turned around and went, "That was the one with the devil," and I'm like, "Okay, that doesn't happen at all these days." I said, "Yes, it was." He said, "Yeah, the devil was chained to a rock, wasn't he?" And I was like, "Oh my goodness, wow!" So that was the power of these episodes to the general public as well. They remember. He must have been in his teens, to be honest, at that point.
The great thing about growing up with things like this with good stories is, initially as a kid, you're captivated by what you're looking at. Like the monsters and the beast and just the impressive visuals of the story. But, as you watch it more and more, and you start to pick up on little things that maybe you didn't notice when you were younger, and it just makes the whole experience, whereas I think where a child might enjoy, let's say, a Chibnall story, if they were unfortunate enough to grow up, then they might enjoy it like, "Oh, that looks cool, that looks nice." But as they get older, they'll be like, "Oh, actually that wasn't great." And that has happened with a lot of New Who, even in RTD's original era. Is it now that I've analysed it again, it doesn't have that sort of thing that really captures me. But this story has a lot of things that I think will stand the test of time.
Yeah, but it's also amazing what you're saying there as well, Jack. It's because we've also had an awful lot of you guys, your ages coming back saying, "Actually, I've discovered what you lot call classic Doctor Who, and I call proper Doctor Who. We've discovered that now." And then there's thinking, "Actually, this is really good." And again, it's down to story. It really, we've seen it on this show. When we do our reviews, look how many people come look at the reviews, leave us comments, join in with the chat, like Captain Borsak has done here. Hello to you. How are you? Tennant isn't my favorite modern Doctor, but this two-parter really shows what good actors can do with a great story, doesn't it? Just And the ones that are in it today, go and look at this, because this is how Doctor Who's played. This is how it is. You've got to believe in that script. You can't just say, "Oh, this is a weak script, we're going to camp it up." You've got to elevate it. You've got to bring it up, and you've got to do something with it. Luckily, this lot got a cracking solid script to do. And they must have all seen, guys. They must have seen the horrific element, the alien element, the supernatural element, the whole ethos of this, and played it. Hey, Emilio.
Shooty's actually watched this episode, because I think when he first apparently, so because I think he was asked about what his favorite monster was, and maybe he watched a YouTube clip rather than watching the episode, but he did mention the beast. So he
I remember.
If I probably did it on fast forward, Emilio.
Yeah, I must have done. Probably. But I think if I was him, I would be sitting there going, even to excuse all his not great acting, but if I was as an actor, I'd be sitting there going, the scripts you were serving there and the scripts you're serving to me now.
Absolutely.
Come on, I just think, but I just thought it funny that kind of Shooty had watched it, and obviously, he wouldn't lay a glove on Tennant's performance in this at all.
They'd be too busy crying, wouldn't they? "Oh, there's a big beastie!" Oh, that's flaming hot. Ah, no, goodness
Well,
me.
imagine his reaction to losing the TARDIS. My God.
Oh my word!
Wow.
Oh god!
Wow.
Mental breakdown live on Doctor Who.
A lot of
It
yelling.
regenerated probably because it's so stressful, you know.
Oh, do you know what? That's a good point, though, Emilio. Why is it, if he's watched this episode, why has he not gotten tapped on Mr. T. Davis's door and said, "Oh yeah, what's this rubbish you're giving me?" When you get Tennant that, yeah, what's going on here?
He wouldn't be able to act it, would he?
What?
They
He
probably
wouldn't be
has.
able
That's why
to
he's
act
been
it, would he?
Yeah.
No, that's true, Ian. That's true there. Yeah. Stephen, what are you saying to us here? The double cliffhangers are at the Wind. The double cliffhangers at the Wind were so good I couldn't wait till the following week. I would imagine that must be time. The double cliffhangers at the time were so good I couldn't wait till the following week. That was the magic of this particular stuff, though, wasn't it? You know, Paul Richards is saying to us, "Let's have an older, scruffy Doctor." Then there's no hint of a relationship. Well, of course, that's not going to happen now. The problem with all the modern Who companions is that they're all character based in the moment. No real variation or depth. I totally agree with that, Legion of James. Totally get that. It's all about the modern day. Oh, that one's from 2006. That one's from 2008. That one's from 2023. Yeah, it's definitely there. Ian, you'll like this one from Digby. You speak much sense.
Thank you, Digby. It's very kind.
Michael is saying,
"I'm related to Yoda by any chance?"
He may look like him, but he doesn't talk like it. We've got that going on. Thank you very much, everyone. You were all late developers, JT. We were. It's true, Forbidden Man. The Doctor should never be boring and banal with human emotions, but here we are, says Paul Richards. Yeah, and Brian's saying to us here, "Hey, my first Doctor was Pat Troughton. What a great way to start the show.
Lucky you.
Yeah. What do you remember?" Yes, and Bill is saying to us, believable characters, very well acted. I mean, I again, as I say, I just think the whole thing works, and it must have been a gift. Can you imagine if you're an actor and you got this on the post on the Monday morning? Brilliant. And you looked at this and think, "I'm going into Doctor Who. It's a big show right now. Wow, I'm going to do this script."
The Doctor meet the devil. I mean, that's gonna, that's enough on its own to be like, all right, I'm gonna be in this episode.
Yeah. The other thing about this, go on, Kirst.
The lady who played Ida, she's actually playing David's wife in the new.
That's right.
In Rivals,
in Clive, Clive Rushbrook. Yeah.
Some of their press junket stuff. Some of their press junket stuff, they're actually really excited to go back and play with each other this time because of how much fun they had when they were on set for this as well. Yeah. So that's nice.
It's nice the way they cross paths again, isn't it? It really is. It's very good. But that's the acting community. It seems to be smaller these days, but that could just be me. I don't know. We're looking at the characters. We're looking at all this, how they work and interplay. Don't forget that tomorrow we're going to be looking at the Satan Pit here, part 2 of this cracking story on Halloween night itself, as part of our Wholloween series. So we're going to be talking more, I would imagine, about character and where they all go and what happens to them there. But as we say, this episode is setting up what is to come, but it's really action-packed as well. This whole thing about, the Doctor and Ida, we've got to go down, we've got to go down, we've got to go down. Oh, and it's only the first part of it as well, isn't it? I mean, it's just a case of, wow, this unknown thing that's going on. And the way that the Doctor and Rose part company as well here. Didn't mind this so much.
No,
I think I did at the time, but this time round, I didn't mind this so much. This whole sort of kissy nonsense going on, please.
Well, kissing his helmet may be misconstrued, that's what I'm saying. Sorry, that was just low-hanging fruit. I'm really sorry.
It really was. Well, but it's because the whole thing at this point is, they have to go down because the suggestion has been there about who the baddie is in this, and I think it's bringing in excitement in on a first view. And I remember at the time thinking, hang on a minute. This is going to places Doctor Who hasn't quite been before. Yeah, we've been to, as we have been here on our channel, the demons is the nearest we've got. And that's referenced as well, isn't it? You get that nice
when he references all the different characters, like the Khaled, the God of War and things like that, all the different names of references from classic Who is superb. I'm sure we all got the chills when that happened.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
But it's also playing it safe. isn't it? Because you can't just go for all the human ones because you know you're going to get, well, dear BBC, you mentioned this and you mentioned that, and you know that would actually happen. So they're putting in the fiction. They're using, for once, the continuity correctly and adding some new elements in there to say that it's universe wide.
Yeah,
But I just love the wee suggestions. As some of you were saying in the chat, there have been little hints about these coming out, and one of the biggest hint was this one.
Yeah,
that was good.
Wasn't it just? Do you remember at the time this came out of nowhere and you just go, oh, they're going there. They're doing it. They are going there properly this time. That's the feeling I was getting. They're actually going to bring in the big D.
I wasn't a fan of it. Could I be?
Oh,
could I say it?
like...
I might be the only one on the panel, but I actually preferred if they hadn't shown the devil and they just had the possession at the end, because I think actually it took a little bit of the. Well, maybe because I know what the ending
Were
is.
You scared, Amelia? Were you leave?
It took a little bit, not to get a whole. It took a little bit of mystery out of it. Actually, I think showing the devil in visual form, I think took a little bit away. Actually, I would have preferred had they not. I get as a like jump horror moment. Oh wow, crap, what's that? But I think it did actually take it a little bit away. I think if they had not shown that, and you only saw that in the second part of, you know, seeing the physical form, and we just had the voice of Gabriel Wolf, I think that would have worked better personally for me.
Oh, that's interesting. That is interesting, because Garbage is agreeing with you, Emilio. I agree. I didn't mind if the devil wasn't there. We have to also state at this point as well, it's not really the devil, is it? I mean, it's some sort of alien, Ian's old alien type thing, as explained. We'll get to all that again.
Yeah.
Or is it?
It's a great visual effect. So I know we're not on part two because it's not be seen, but it's a great visual effect in part two, though, isn't it?
I love the fact that we're building up to it on this one.
Yeah.
And there's a little bit of the red herring that's coming in as well, isn't there? Let's get to this. What's this from Legion of James panel? Do you think it's the delicate audience, i.e. bedwetters, nowadays, or the lack of talent and ability to write good stories that removed the central scare factor from Doctor Who? Yes.
Better column A, better column B, I think.
I think all of that. What do you guys think?
Well, woke ideology only destroys, it doesn't create. And I think ultimately that is ultimately what you're not going to get creativity in today's world with the kind of woke culture that we have, because it's not it's only focused on destroying things. There's no creativity that can come from it. It's a very kind of only very simplistic narrative can come from it, and that's what we're seeing with kind of Doctor Who, right? There's no nuance anymore. It's ideology, very kind of it's one way. The stories that we have are too fearful to scare or push boundaries, so you're not going to be able to create anything that is going to be of real interest. If the writers themselves hold the ideology that they do. I think that's the difference between now and what we've seen in the first version of New Who was they weren't afraid to push their boundary. They weren't as ideologically driven as they are now, and woke culture wasn't what it is today. So yeah, that's my personal opinion. Is don't hold your hopes out. The only hope is that you get writers in that do have nuance and aren't ideologically driven, but they're far and few between on TV right now.
Anyone else want to answer that one for Legion, James?
Well, I was going to add that when they made Impossible Planet, they were still trying to entertain us. That was the main ambition behind the program, was entertaining the audience. That was the main issue there.
Absolutely.
Which they've missed completely now. Yeah.
I think it is a valid point, really. It's like you see it in society completely, don't you? You don't allow children to climb trees anymore. You wrap them in cotton wool so they don't experience risk, they don't experience danger, they don't learn from experiences. They're just wrapped in cotton wool. And now it expands to in TV, you can't do anything that scares them. You've got to protect them all the time, which is not a reflection of the real world. It's not a reflection of life. It's also not fun. I mean, Terry Nation got it absolutely right, didn't he? When he said kids like to be scared. That's why they creep up the stairs in the dark to scare themselves. They like being scared. And it's an essential part of growing up, and it just gives you a little bit of a spine that you can then develop as you get older, whereas now they are, a lot of them anyway, are absolute spineless bedwetters who can't cope with anything. They have no resilience. They have absolutely nothing. If you'd have had a lockdown in the 1970s or 80s, it would have been crap because there wasn't any online to entertain yourself.
Yeah.
But we'd have coped. Because we were already able to make our own entertainment.
We went
Whereas-
outside here in those days as well.
Yeah, but you look now and you're still seeing the effects of the lockdown because they were so totally screwed up because they have absolutely no ability to think for themselves in many respects. And I think it's an accumulation of all this overprotective wetness, really. And
Well, they
it's a
are
bad
trapped in a
thing.
circle, aren't they? Because you're absolutely, I think you're right there, Ian. I mean, they are trapped in a circle, though, because they're not giving them things like the impossible planet to actually make them think or scare or react or whatever, because they're just giving them watered down trash, which they seem to think is the best thing ever. It's ridiculous. But that's a great point, Legion of James. Thank you for that. Appreciate that question. You're going to say something, Emilio?
No.
That's fine then. Captain Borsak is saying to us, aliens as God is a great Doctor Who trope. It really is. And Golden Age Geek is saying, the thing that always gives me chills is when the Doctor asks the Beast what devil he is, because there are so many in different beliefs, and the Beast responds with all of them. That's reminded me, because that is a great scene. But this whole, you've just reminded me, Golden Age Geek, this is a brilliant scene anyway, because here's this thing, this creature, teasing them all. He's enticing them. He's trying to make them frightened by saying, oh, you're this, you're that, you're this, you're that, you're this, you're that. And then, of course, as we talked about, there's the whole big thing there with the audience thing about, this one's going to die. And that's purely there for the viewer, that one, isn't it? But it's a great scene.
They do a great job, I agree, JT, on when you hear the devil speaking and you go to, I think it's quite chilling, actually, when you go to Mr. Jefferson, did your wife ever forgive you? And his kind of face, brilliant. And his reaction to it, like, how could you, obviously, we don't get told, the audience, what got on there, but it's basically like from his eyes, his facial reaction, like, how the hell do you know that? And the devil would know your kind of darkest thoughts and deeds and tempt you, and you say toying and playing, and I thought that scene and this part great, and obviously, as you say, JT, it carries on into the next
big time
parts. Much more so, but I thought that was great. That scene there was brilliant.
We've got lots of comments from what you were all talking about, what we were all just discussing about there as well. So thank you very much for all that. But it makes me wonder, building on back what Ian was saying there, is if the alleged fans of this Ncuti Gatwa watered down, very juvenile, ridiculous version of Doctor Who, a drag queen, please, all this sort of stuff. What would happen if they came? Have they watched The Impossible Planet and The Satan Pit? What would happen if they do? Would they be reaching for a helpline? I hate to think. But we've got Theodore Benton here. Hiya, Theodore. Good morning to you, because it's morning where you are. I'm going to rewind to the beginning. Wow, I so agree with what woke ideology is doing to things. Emilio, that's well said. And Stephen Braddock is saying to us here, Ian is right. It's so stupid now. Was about to watch Captain Scarlet on ITVX and had to turn off parental control to watch. Kids watched this back in 1967. So sad now. How ridiculous is that? ITVX, what are you doing? It's a kids show. Let them get on with it.
For goodness sake.
It's a puppet. Yes, that's brilliant. That's it. Also, Java Bean Studio saying to us here, hello to you. The greatest trick the devil ever played was convincing the world that he did not exist.
Ooh,
great line. Absolutely fantastic.
No change there then. Yeah.
No. And the Forbidden Planet, Forbidden Planet, just send me stuff. The Forbidden Man, they are not allowed to think for themselves as we move towards loss of freedom of choice. No Ncuti Gatwa, by the way. You will do this or that, or you will pay for it. Yeah. Yeah.
I think what's great about this episode, or the two-parter in general, in terms of the theme on kind of religion and the devil, is in 2024 this would have been big, anti-religion. The devil doesn't exist. But what this story does is it leaves up to your interpretation. I come from a family that are kind of religious. I would have watching this as a kid. I wouldn't have taken this episode as pulling one way or the other. It's leaving it up to the audience. You know, was that the devil?
Ambiguous, yeah.
Wasn't it the devil? It's ambiguous. Exactly, Paul. It's reflecting the fact that the audience will have different opinion to what maybe RTD or his clan would have had. But now they would have just inserted one view, and it would make the episode and the themes completely less interesting.
This is what Doctor Who always did. But I mean, if you look at the demons, you know, if you look at anything like that, here they're doing the same sort of trick. They're saying, well, look, this is a science fiction element. This is science fiction. And as Ian was saying, that the Dalek, the Khalid god of war, and all this sort of stuff, they've added all these elements in so that they don't do that. Whereas now, as you would say, Emilio, they just say, right, we're going to get at this thing. And we all know what thing it would be. Paul, what you were saying there about ambiguity, Golden Age Geek actually agrees with you there. Ambiguity is a very sensitive thing in storytelling. This story does it right by giving you the beast, but not revealing everything, whereas 73 yards reveals nothing of significance. Yeah, true. Java Bean is saying to us here, now the devil would be a straight white man. Yes. And Problem Being is also saying to us, we know the devil exists, otherwise how did he cast and write for Ncuti Gatwa? Julianne is saying to you, Emilio, spot on. Now they were playing the Anglicans. Exactly. Absolutely. So yeah, the devil could be an alien being like the ones we see in Quatermass. As they proved in this particular story, Paul. I mean, we're not going to get to him till tomorrow because we haven't got there yet. But I have to say that whole scene where he is going around each of them, selecting them and giving that, I found that quite. It's a beautiful scene. I quite like the reactions from the actors. Again, it shows their talent. It's quite a tense scene, and yet here comes the Doctor going, right, how can I know what you're doing here? And I know you're not who you say you are, but I'm going to find out who you are. I quite like all that sort of stuff because it's the Doctor, isn't it? It says, oh, please come and bite me.
I love it when he says to the Doctor, you know, when he's like, there's no sort of life could have existed back then. And he just says, is that your religion? You know, but.
And he questions him. Yeah. And the Doctor needs questioned. And if it's an enemy that's questioning, how fab is that, Jack?
Yeah, I know, but it's really cool. But did any of you pick up on the foreshadowing that the devil was going to be in Doctor Who?
What do you mean?
It's in the Christmas Invasion. So when he confronts Harriet Jones, he says, I could bring down your government with a single word. And she's like, no, you can't. Like, no, you're not right. Just 6. 6 words. 6.
I thought she said 4.
Oh, the number of the beast, you mean?
Yeah, he says 6 3 times.
As
opposed to 667, the neighbor of the beast. Yeah.
No, that's wrong. In the Christmas Invasion, it was. Doesn't she look tired?
No, but before that, he says that. He says, I can bring down your government with just 6 words. Don't you think she looks tired? And she says, says that 3 times. You know, he says 6 3 times.
I think that's a fan thing that you're working out there. I know that's chance on that one. Wow, fabulous. So where are we up to? Oh yeah, they go down the pit. The Doctor and Ida go down, don't they? They go down into the depths there. And again,
I didn't think something was coming up at first. You know, at the end of the episode.
Yeah. As the devil's laughing at the end of the cliffhanger.
Yeah, and the camera comes up and you think something's coming up there. And
I love that. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I have to say, I also love this. These effects are wonderful.
Lovely, yeah.
This is really good. This is what you want to see.
It's like something out of a Sinbad movie, isn't it? Like Sinbad the Tiger or something like
that. Yeah. And here's Toby's Lost Civilization, which was mentioned. Again, it's another plot element here that they follow through. It's not just a line they've forgotten, but I think they do it well. And it's brilliantly lit and filmed and what have you. It's just absolutely fantastic. But the big red herring, of course, is this thing where they find this. And that's when you go, oh, hang on a minute, there's more to this. You know, this was just fantastic.
It's a giant plug hole, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. You just with all this weird stuff on it. And here's the mystery again. And I love the way that David and Claire are playing this, because they help to build up this element of the script by going, there's more coming into this. This is it. But you're right, Ian. I mean, goodness me, what an ending to this particular episode when the thing opens. And you get that laugh.
Really does get the tension. Yeah. It really does.
I am free is how he ends it, isn't it? Which is, which is a great way to leave you for the next week. Yeah.
Well, it is. And on that note, Halloween concludes here on the channel tomorrow as we look at part 2 of this story, The Satan Pit, live at 8 o'clock again here on the channel. Oh, I'm getting shivers. Look at that thing.
I've been dropping the link every so often, so just
Thank
keep
you, Kirsty. Thank you.
looking at it. The link's there to share and tell all your friends and tell your nan to come tomorrow.
Exactly. However, we are going to be doing scores on the TARDIS doors for this episode, Impossible Planet, in a minute. But before we do that, let's just have a look at what Jack's holding up there for us as well, because he's been doodling while he's been here again. So let's have a look at this.
Oh, that's lovely, Jack. Very nice.
Well done.
You're a talented doodler, sir.
Look
You
at
can't really
That's
describe that
really-
as doodling. It's too good for doodling, isn't it?
It
Let's
is,
be honest.
isn't it? Yeah.
Yes.
I like that very much. That's
A lot of
wonderful.
colouring
Well
needs
done.
to be
Well done. I like that. That's
Gorgeous.
great. Oh, maybe he'll finish that for tomorrow. Let's see what you're saying in the
try.
chat before we do that. What else what we got here as well? What we got. Here we go. Stephen Braddock saying, "Love the Doctor's philosophy on faith before he releases his harness." Oh, what a scene that is!
Mm.
And then he just plummets into the darkness. It's magical, that isn't it? Let's pick up on that one tomorrow, shall we? Part 2 with the Satan Pit. Why didn't this writer ever come back? Did he upstage RTD? Says Java Bean. Well, you
Correct.
might think that. I have to say, there have been rumors about that for years now. And hopefully one day we'll find the real answer. Who knows? Who knows? Legion of James says it's a bit of a Buffy riff-off with the Hellmouth. Oh, was it? You see, I don't know. I don't know about that. Thank you. JT, I just jumped out of my skin. That music was so loud. Good, darling guy. This is the Wholloween show. Good. What have we got? And Paul Richards saying to us here, the effects prove that it doesn't need Disney involvement to be good enough. Just give us good stories and not daft, silly singing numbers. Interesting point there. Make sure you join us on Sunday for headlines. That's all I'm saying right now. Paul is also saying to you, Jack, great artwork, Jack. So is
thanks.
Golden Age Geek. Great work, Jack. And Peter Venkman fansite is giving you some claps there. Beautiful, Jack, says Pete Harrington. Oh, look, Julianne saying very nice, Jack. And Legion James quite rightly saying, all these artists in the Who's Views family, I love it. Quite right, too. There's so many talented people around me, it's sickening. Shocking. Paul Rose is saying, were we up to 5? Yeah, we were up to 5 on the Paulometer this evening, everybody. They are so wet.
Great name.
They are so wet and PC now, they wouldn't dare touch anything with religious overtones. And yet here they are doing it the right way. They really are. Science fiction style. Problem being saying, great, Jack. And Jack Rabbit from one artist to another. Excellent. Very good. So listen, as I ask the panel now, what's this from Julianne? RTD2, now the pit would probably open like the Trumpton musical box.
I'd watch that one, though, I have to say. Yeah.
You're right, Julianne, with the little music to it. Oh, can't do the music. Yes. Oh, God. Happy days, eh? Happy days. And the beast does not disappoint. We'll be talking more about that tomorrow, everybody. What we need now from you all is start putting in your scores on the TARDIS doors, please, in the chat. Out of 10, as usual, please, as I get ready to ask the panel the same question. Indeed, scores on the TARDIS doors. Yeah, this is the bit where we all mark the story out of 10, please, in the chat. We'll come to you very, very shortly. In the meantime, I'm going to start with Paul. Impossible Planet out of 10.
Before I give my score, something I want to mention, whenever touched on, was
Go
the
on.
elephant in the room. When the Doctor says he's lost the TARDIS, and Rose says, "Can't you build another one?" He says they can't build them on the groom.
Don't.
I hated that with a
I
vengeance.
hate that.
So it's
They're
kind of
not
marked off
grown.
from me from that. Okay, so
They
forget
are
about that.
blooming built. They are not
Yeah.
grown. They were
Yeah.
built by Time Lord
Yeah.
engineers as
I hated
established in
that.
the
That
original
drove me
series.
crazy. Yeah.
Ridiculous.
So
According to the Missing Adventures, they were born by male and female TARDISes.
I
getting it
know
on.
that was nonsense as well, isn't
you
it? This
can't
is what
unsee that
happens when
image
you
now,
like
Ian.
on
You
the
can't.
show.
Two TARDISes humping. You can't do that.
It's just absolute
They
nonsense.
actually
Going up and
reference
down.
full TARDISes.
Oh, it's just ridiculous. Like, anyway, back to this. What are you going to give this out of 10?
Well, it's a great story, great atmosphere. It feels like proper Doctor Who. I'll give it I'm taking a point off for the grown TARDIS. I'll give it 9 out of 10.
Very good score. Kirsty, lady of the chat, what are you giving The Impossible Planet?
I do concur with my esteemed colleague beside me. It still holds up, but there's still little icky bits now, like mortgages and love and all that. So I will give it a big fat 9.
A 9 out of 10. Fabulous. Jack, what are you going to give The Impossible Planet out of 10?
I struggle to find fault with it. I'm not going to lie. I think
That's okay.
a perfect part 1, and I think part 2 is also perfect. So I'm going to give it a 10 out of 10. I think it is the golden standard for what Doctor Who should be, in my opinion.
Good for you, and well done to The Impossible Planet. Good for you. Emilio, what are you going to give this one?
I'm going to give it a 9.
Okay.
I'm only taking a point off, one, because I would have liked not for the Devil's image to have been revealed in the first part. Could have it took a little bit away from me. Like with Kirsty, some kind of issues in regard to the mortgage, and kind of Road can get on my nerves a little bit in this. But I think the characters are great. I think they're well formed. I think it's nice that you've got a real kind of mix of different kind of individual. They feel like they're already a team. The pacing of the episode is really interesting because you're kind of chucked into it very early, but it slowed down a little bit. Then it peaks up a little bit. You know, they're good pacing in terms of breadth. You know, you've got time. It gives it time to breathe, but there's also a lot of action for part 1, which is not that common in Doctor Who, especially in New Who. So, yeah, I think overall it's a great episode. It just let down by a few things.
So 9 out of 10 from you. Yeah. Thank you very much. And third Doctor Ian.
I'm going to dock it for the mortgage. I'm going to dock it a little bit for the breathless, overly hormonal Rose with the Doctor, and pointing the sonic screwdriver like it's Harry Potter's wand, which is a very foreshadowing of Jodie Whittaker's 57 times an episode with the sonic screwdriver. But strong female characters in 2006. Who'd have thought it? Because surely that's a new thing, isn't it? A black person leading the base's crew. My God, who'd have thunk it? In 2006, we never had black people on television, full stop, before 2020, did we? Surely it's a new thing, isn't it?
Yeah. Can I just point out as well, we were talking about this off stage after headlines the other day, weren't we? And I didn't even realize that the chat was black, because it doesn't matter.
It just wasn't an issue, was it? It was just a bloody good actor.
Exactly.
Really good actor doing a really good
I didn't know this. I didn't recognize him, but he's from The Mummy. If
he's the pilot in The Mummy, isn't he? I think. Yeah.
He's really good.
Yeah.
Very
good.
But
it's a 9 from me.
A 9. Okay. Great. Before we get to the chat, I'm going to say I loved this. It was so nice to watch and actually forget my argument with David Tennant at the moment. I forgot about that because the story brought me in. I also forgot my argument with RTD because the story brought me in. And I was reliving this, and I really enjoyed it. And as I say, my plan wasn't to watch part 1 and 2 back to back, but I did because I got so much. And that cliffhanger, just thought, I'm staying with this. I want to know what happens next, even though I remembered. Loved it, but like the guys, I'm going to take a little mark off because of those soap opera elements, which they don't sit with me. So I'm giving this a 9 out of 10. So I think it's done really well from us on the panel. I hate to think what that was. We're being watched. Right, let's get into the chat here. Lex, 9 out of 10. A very good episode. Wish it was a 4-part story. Great that they use a quarry. Yep. Excellent characters, including Mr. Jefferson and Ida Scott. Very in space. No one can hear you scream. Absolutely. We've got John with us saying 9 out of 10 as well. A story I can watch more than once. Actually, I know what you mean by that. Golden Age is going full out and giving it 10 out of 10. Thank you very much for that one. What we've got here, Paul Stenford is saying, to a people relationship between the Doctor and Rose, some dodgy CGI, and Tennant being overbearing ruin what I feel could have been a great episode. Sorry, it doesn't work for me. 5 out of 10. I think that's still quite good. That's halfway, and it's still better than what the Gatwa series got. Have to tell you, Brian Mason is saying 10 out of 10. It's pure genius. That's great. Well done to Matt. If he ever sees these episodes, cracking story here. 666 says Peter Harrington. No. A 9, really. Naughty. Score on the door. 7 chat says 10, 7 out of 10. Oh, so 7 for that, and the chat 10. Oh, that's nice, Forbidden Man. Thank you very much. You got a 10 there, guys. Well done.
Thank you.
Look at this one. Mrs. Lisa Pertwee's Gal. In 2006, I gave it a 9, but now I can't watch. I can't stand Tennant with a passion. 2. Ooh, I know what you mean about that. See, this is my argument on headlines, isn't it? He's not as popular as he was because he opened that. Silly boy. Legion of James, 6 out of 10 for story and atmosphere. Would have been higher a few years ago, but I'm jaded by Tennant. There you go. I understand. I really, really do. 2 out of 10. Yeah, thanks, Mrs. Lisa Peterscout. Always nice to see you. Stephen Braddock saying 10 out of 10. Proper thought-provoking, well-acted, scary Doctor Who. Paul Rose, 8.5 out of 10. A standout 2-parter from Modern Who. And Bill Lowry is saying it's got to be 10 out of 10. Solid Who as it should be done. Great references to sci-fi films. Great characters. Golden Age Geek is also saying to us, I've always interpreted that as the soul of the TARDIS shown in the Doctor's wife is grown, whereas the actual mechanical parts are built. They've twisted it, though, Golden Age Geek, with this new version they have. I mean, it wouldn't surprise me if they go back on it and change something else, because that new console room is not grown. That is built. That's an engineer's.
But there was in Battlefield, that spaceship under the lake. I mean, that was grown. I always liked that aspect of it. You know, it was something new. And it's like, yeah, I mean, they always kind of hint that the TARDIS is alive in Classic Who. I mean, Pertwee, with this whole, he's like, you talk as if she were alive. Yes.
It's more the sentient side of stuff, though, isn't it? I mean, the gag was, guys, as well, that it's a man in his car. Which I don't know if your generation does, but certainly ours. Our dad certainly had the girl. The car was always a female, and it was always given some sort of name or something by this. And it's a car. It's the Doctor is a man tinkering with under the bonnet of his car all the time. That was the gag. It's the same thing.
People would often refer to the TARDIS as the old girl, though. As well.
No, they wouldn't dream of doing that now, would they?
They wouldn't do it now. But in Classic Who, it was fairly common, wasn't it?
Oh, totally, because that's how we used to speak, wasn't it?
It was great, yeah.
It's part of it.
We did try to bring that back in Matt Smith's era, where he would be like tinkering around with the TARDIS. He referred, I know there were like mini-sodes where Amy actually calls him out and says, you're just kind of like a, you really are a bloke. You got your that kind of reference to JT being a car. It's just I don't think that got enough screen time in the episode.
It took that a little bit too far, and he called her sexy as well, didn't he?
Oh no.
That was Moffat, wasn't it?
All over.
Trousers.
Yeah, certainly not in the coral look or what the copper thing that came after. I wouldn't call that sexy. I'd just call that overplayed. Rose Kirby. Overall, I'll give this 8 out of 10. Good score as well. Thank you, Rose. Problem Beans giving it 7 out of 10. Don't know what's happened to Peter Venkman, but he goes, oof. Dalek Eye, sat on something possibly. Dalek Eye saying 8 out of 10. The story was excellent, but the Rose and Tennant relationship was too icky for me. I know what you mean. Paul Richards, I'd give this a 7 out of 10. It's original. It's not original, but it's good. That's the thing, isn't it? I mean, it's one of these things where, you sort of get where it's coming from, but because it's familiar, it's good. You settle with it. Do you know what I mean? You can sit down and think, oh, that's great. Rick Storm, nice to see you. 9 out of 10. It's one of the better episodes. And Steve, who's watching with his brother, says, my brother's giving it 10 out of 10. Me, I'm giving it 9 out of 10. Always good to see you too. Thank you so much for watching and joining us. Really appreciate it. I'm abstaining, says David Harding. I'm an Aquarius. Oh, no, I'm abstaining from voting because I don't really remember enough about it to have an informed opinion. You mean you didn't watch it before the show? How outrageous.
You didn't do your homework?
No, we told you it was coming along. What were you doing, David? I mean, it's outrageous. Heaven's sake. Have you got time to watch the Satan Picture? Join us tomorrow, mate. I hope so. Hello from the Philippines, says Melody Short Music. Well, hello. That sounds utterly glamorous from somebody that's living in Scotland, I tell you. From the Philippines. I hope everything is well from you, Melody Short Music. Thank you for joining us. Nice to see you. Right, what else we got here? Any more for any more? We do. We've got Julianne, the lovely Julianne, saying, giving it 8 out of 10. It's good, but I have issues with the romantic subtext nonsense. Have you noticed it's a lot of the women have, a lot of the girl Doctor Who fans are, so there's not that divide, is there? Like they were trying to suggest, all those years ago, they were trying to say, oh no, this is, the ladies like this. They don't. They just want proper sci-fi like everyone else. It's just ridiculous. Anyway, that's beside the point. 10 out of 10 for me. I loved it, says Marcus Barry. Fabulous. And of course, says Paul Rose, one of the actors was in Alien 3 as well. Fabulous. Anything else? Have I got any more? Have I got any more?
Yes.
Have I missed any
7.
more?
Peter Venkman, he says 7.
Oh, there he is. 7 with great characterization, spelt wrongly. It's an S, dear. Atmosphere and story. You're right, Peter Venkman. You are right there. So 7 out of 10 is a great score there as well.
He spelled oof right, though.
Hey?
He spelled oof right, though, didn't he?
He did spell oof right. There's a story there on that one. I agree with Lisa, says Stephen Braddock, about Tennant. I voted purely on the story. Otherwise, it would have been a very low score. I hate what he's become now. As I said, I managed on this one to actually say, no, this is the Doctor. I've got to believe this is the Doctor and not listen to his nonsense.
It had to be a good enough story, doesn't it, JT, for you to be able, I think, unfortunately, to separate.
It's hard work.
The 6,000 person and the story you're getting. I think if it's not a great story, I think you're more likely to kind of lean into the current today, basically.
Yeah, I think you could be right there, but it is hard work. Because he's annoyed a lot of us, hasn't he? He really has. Graham, evening all, literally just got here. Good to see you, Graham. 6 out of 10 for me. We'll try and catch up tomorrow. Well, a good time tomorrow because we're going to be back tomorrow at 8 o'clock UK time for part 2 of this. JT, wait for a few years, says Paul Rose. They wait the TARDIS a car. That's the last thing they'll have to ruin. Do you know what? Stop giving them ideas. I've said it before.
Yeah.
They could do it. Didn't they do it in one of the new adventures, Ian?
At one point, I believe so, yeah.
And I didn't like that either.
No.
They turned it into a car, did they?
Yeah, they
did all sorts. They did all sorts. And there was one point where they went around and supposedly destroyed Gallifrey. And for a while, the McGann Doctor didn't have the TARDIS, and he just got a box and put it in the corner of a room and painted it blue, whilst his old TARDIS regrew.
And then they all came and worked on the telly show. Honestly, there are parallels. We'll deal with this one day on this very channel, so make sure you've subscribed. Graham is saying to us, the romantic bit is what put me off big time. I remember at the time. And Mark Postgate, nice to see you here. What I find interesting is Ian and Barbara are the first to realize the TARDIS is alive and the Doctor denies it. I like the implication that the Time Lords don't know they've created AI. And then they travel back and make sure they didn't.
I mean, you look back at things like, sorry, JT, but you look back at things like Planet of the Spiders, episode 6. The Doctor's lost in the time-space vortex. The TARDIS brought me home. That's not just a machine, is it?
Yeah.
No.
Or the bit in the Time Monster when he gets put into the time vortex by the Master, the TARDIS brings him back, as well.
Yeah.
Do you guys think the issue is that they probably reveal too much about the TARDIS? I think when it's suggested, that it's fine. You can kind of make your own mind up about how the mechanics of the TARDIS works. But I think when you reveal too much, then unfortunately, if you're not a fan like JT is of the kind of grown versus the machine aspect of it, and it's alive, and then it's you're stuck basically at that point.
Yeah. Thanks again to Lex Kane for another super chat here. Peter Capaldi would be good in the Impossible Planet. I can't actually see. Yeah. I don't know. I don't know if I can see him in it. I don't know if I can see that.
Clara, she'd be slapping him every 2 seconds, wouldn't she?
Yeah. I don't know. Do you know how you can get I couldn't see Eccleston in this either.
No. But I could see Tom Baker in it. With Liz.
It's odd, that, isn't it? Do you know, you say, oh, this could be a certain Doctor's episode, and sometimes I think because the other one I can't think of, I can't see Eccleston in any of these episodes, even though it was that period we all know about now. But I can't see him being his Doctor suiting these episodes at all. But certainly this one, I think you need to be a lighter Doctor, which is certainly what Tennant was when you compare him to Eccleston. But no, good point there. Thank you for that, Lex. Stephen Braddock is also saying, just thanks for a horrific part 1. Great discussion in the chat and by the panel. Nice to chat about Modern Who. We pretty much agree on what was good back then. It really is. But you know what? It's heartbreaking as well, isn't it? It is absolutely heartbreaking because they've just shown us what they used to do because we've gone back and revisited it. So it is heartbreaking. But do you know what? Let's talk about it more tomorrow, because tomorrow we're going to be talking about, as you know, the Satan Pit Part 2. But let's also talk about where's it gone wrong. How's that sound to everybody? Because it has, hasn't it?
How long have we got?
It depends if you're going out trying to get sweeties from strangers. You know, in my day, we were told not to do that. Now we practically push them out in a stupid costume and say, get out there and get your sweeties from strangers. The world's gone mad, everybody.
Yeah.
It's gone insane. It really has. It's ridiculous. Listen, Paul, Kirsty, Third Doctor Ian, Emilio, Time Lord Victorious, and Jack Rabbit, thank you so much for coming onto the show. If you haven't watched the Satan Pit, now's the time to go back and go and watch it. Because as I've said several times, we'll be back tomorrow here on the channel live from 8 o'clock UK time to talk about the Satan Pit. Come back and join us. Make sure you come back and join us as we get to grips with that fantastic episode. I'm excited. I don't know about you guys.
Yeah, looking forward to it. Yeah,
Very much.
Brilliant.
Good therapy.
Very good therapy. Well, from all of us to you, thanks very much for joining us. Don't forget to like the channel. Way up, the visitors back. Don't forget to like the channel. Please subscribe to the channel if you haven't done already. If you have subscribed to the channel, please make sure you are still subscribed. Give us a like, all the thumbs up there. Don't forget we've got our Instagram and Facebook pages there for you as well, which is all full of nonsense, but it's all there for you. So go and have a look at all of that. We will be back tomorrow live from 8 UK time with the Satan Pit. Until then, have a good time. Look after each other. Woo! Bye, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.